Do you have rebellious teenagers? A lot of parents do. The problem is, when you're talking to people who have rebellious teens, it is very difficult to help them because the teens are already teens. Really, a talk like this would be for young people just getting married. So I'm going to talk as though everybody in this audience is just getting married. And I'm going to say, do you want to have rebellious teens? What causes young people to rebel? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. First of all, where the child goes to school, who the children associate with. All of these are factors. Now, a sensible parent will govern this. They will govern this. They will try to keep their children away from other young people who are not disciplined. Because it's always easier to do the wrong thing than to do the right thing. Doing the right thing is always the hardest. If it was easy to be good, everybody would be good, because we generally do the easiest thing as human beings. That's how we are. We like to do the easiest thing. But it's something about being good. It is very difficult. It goes against our fallen nature to be good, to be holy. In fact, I remember a little bitty girl, maybe 5 years old. She says, I want to be bad. She says, I'm bad. Now, this is just a little child who heard somebody else says, I'm bad. But that isn't a healthy attitude. You know, we should be and have attitudes that say something like this: I want to be good. I want to serve God. I want to be holy. That's our attitude. That's what our attitude should be. But it's not in most cases. Now, a child does not become a teenager overnight. It takes many years. And through those years, how the parent, especially the father, but the mother also, but more important, the father, how he conducts himself in a dignified way. Remember, if I'm a silly parent, it'll be very difficult for my children to respect me. You can like silly people, but you don't respect them. You know, even with wives, it's very difficult for a wife to respect a silly man. So again, we have to go out of ourselves and make ourselves become men. Make ourselves become fathers, husbands, and the same thing with the woman. She has a responsibility. So if the husband and the wife are both trying to do God's will, and they know what they're doing. You see, it's in this day and time, it's much harder to be a parent than it was 50, 60, 70 years ago. Because 50, 60, 70 years ago, the church was a lot stronger. People were a lot better. They had higher morals. The parent didn't have to have all the answers. Today, however, you turn the TV on and it's all type of immorality, contradictions, things that are being said that contradict your Catholic and your Christian faith. So a parent has to know much more about their faith than parents 50, 60, 70 years ago. And we have to realize that. We have to realize that's where that desire to serve God comes in. If I don't have this desire to serve God, I'll just do like everybody else does. And when I do as everybody else does, I'm going to have the same effect as everybody else. So you'll have children, teenagers rebelling because other kids are rebelling. And the child doesn't see anything wrong with it because they got the same problems in their home as their friends have in their home. Everybody is hollering and screaming at each other. All the parents are against the kids. You didn't know that? That's how they feel. So they don't feel like the oddball when they have problems with their parents. When they are rebelling against their parents, committing the sin of disobedience, causing all this trouble, it's not their fault. And in a sense, maybe it's not. Maybe it's the fault of the parents because they didn't teach. See, for me to do good, I have to know why good is good. In other words, what is the benefit of it? If I think I can live any way I want to live, and when I die it's just over with, well, there's no consequences to my life. However, if I believe there's a God, and I believe that there's a heaven and there's a hell, you'd be surprised how that will alter a young person's attitude. If I believe that there's a God and that there is a heaven and there's a hell, and I'm going to go to either one of them, it's going to make me think. If within my family, my parents are living a disciplined life, my father tells the truth. He's responsible. He always puts God and godly things ahead of everything else. He does not do things just for show. He's a sincere person who's genuinely interested in other people because he believes that he is here to know, love, and serve God. Now, if I get up and I say I'm here to know, love, and serve God, and my children look at me and they say, that's the furthest thing from Daddy's the truth. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He's interested in doing what he wants to do. In fact, when he does religious things, it's only the things he wants to do anyhow. And if he didn't want to do it, he wouldn't do it. So there's no really Christianity involved in that. I remember one young man said, my daddy, he gets his kicks with religion. I get my kicks with drugs. Catholics. See? He did not see his daddy as a person who truly loved God. He just seen his daddy who got in the habit of going to church, and he happened to like to go into church, you know. That was his thing that he did. Well, the young person grows up with his thing also. But contrast that with the parent who lives for God. In other words, he seeks out the will of God to the best of his ability. He seeks out the will of God, and then he tries to implement it into his life. As a human being, weak, you know, we all make mistakes, but we're trying to do God's will. We're honest. You know, we don't lie. We don't try to deceive people. We do try to help people whenever we possibly can. Now, again, the way you help people is different in every circumstance. In other words, just to give people money is not necessarily good because they could go buy alcohol with it or drugs. So the thing is, we got to be prudent with this. But, you know, all of this, the lifestyle of a young person, the way the parents structure that home is going to determine the degree of rebellion or not having any rebellion. You know, now you cannot control the will of another person. So the thing is, a parent possibly could do everything right and yet a child go astray. But the thing is, normally the kids are going astray because they wasn't taught properly. So the thing is, as parents, especially people just getting married, young people just getting married, you better start disciplining yourself prior to having children, you see. Because an undisciplined parent cannot get discipline out of their children. It's just impossible, or almost impossible. Remember, there are such a thing as miracles, and it would be almost a miracle. But under normal circumstances, undisciplined parents have undisciplined children. Now, when we say undisciplined, does that mean that the children will always do exactly what they should? Of course not. Only an insane person would expect that. The reason why God gives parents is because the children need them. They need the parent to guide them. But the parent needs to guide them. You can't have parents that are acting like teenagers. So the thing is, even though our children are imperfect, we are doing what God wants us to do and training our children. And training is both in word and example, where they are being taught and they are understanding as their age, and then they're able to understand better what it's all about. They can see the value in being good. They can see the detriment in being bad. They can, especially when the parents points out, you see these children over here, look at the problem they're having. They're not that bad children. They're just undisciplined. They don't understand God and God's ways because the parents did not teach them. Now, just because the parent goes to church, let's say every day, and say a rosary every day, doesn't mean their children are going to be well-adjusted children. Your children will be well-adjusted if they're trained. And training is knowing why they do the good that the parents wants them to do. And then they try, like the parents, to the best of their ability, to implement it in their life. And that's it's a dedication. It is not just getting married to have a good time. And all we think about is the next vacation. No, there's nothing wrong with vacation. But we've got to always strive to do God's will. God bless you. Well, I started to chime in and bring in, well, the chimes are here. We got to go.